I'm here with you. That's all we need.
And I'm here with you. Okay, so this is as always, I'm totally excited to be
Yeah.
here. The conversation with Kate after a hiatus. This is Chris Zydel, who I've loved for a very long time, but this is the first time we've spoken
Mm-hmm.
in real life and looked at each other in this way, and this is just a beautiful opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna do, our usual 30 minutes of conversation, see what happens. I was gonna tell you, Chris, it takes about 30 minutes. Usually these come to their own natural stopping place, but let me just make sure I see my phone. And Chris is, I was like, what do I say about you? You're a heart Sherpa. You're an artist. You're
Mm-hmm.
soul retriever through art and conversation and complete lack of bullshit. And
I love that. I'm going to put that on my About Me page.
there's a there's an openness. There's a complete lack of artifice that I've always so honored in you and how you present yourself to the world. I
Thank
feel
you.
like you're very accessible as a human being. You're not putting up a lot of facades like I'm supposed to look, speak, or be a certain way. And one of the things that's always drawn me to you is your vulnerability and your willingness to say, today is a suck fest, and let us begin again.
All right.
Because
Oh,
it,
thanks,
it
sweet.
makes it just makes me feel like you are real, and you have all these wonderful gifts that you're channeling and creating, and through yourself and others, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful, and you and I will work together for sure.
Oh, yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's gonna
That's for
happen.
sure.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
some extra time for hugging is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, no,
Yeah.
no. We need to build that in.
Yes, I
Absolutely.
know.
Yes.
It's
Right.
so I'm actually
Yes.
sitting in a new place because I decided that I wanted to curl up with Chris on the sofa. So I'm curled up with Chris on the sofa. It's like usually I sit on the floor.
You
And
do? Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
and so this was like a totally different decision. So here I'm in a
Yeah.
different place.
Mhm.
So right before we began, Chris and I were talking about sort of the seeds of discussion because I love the openness of the way these conversations start. And she
Mhm.
said something about she's been thinking about grief and the process of letting go. And I said, "Hang on," and then I pushed record. So,
Right, right.
and I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna cry. And there we are. That's the way life goes. I have Kleenex.
Good,
So
good. Oh, good. Oh,
I'm
good. Yes, yes.
I'm
That's
I'm
that's essential.
I'm prepared. I'm not
Good.
I'm not prepared at all, but we know this. So,
Yeah.
starting with whatever you were about to tell me before I hit record, you said you've been
Mhm.
thinking a lot about grief. So,
Also, one of the things that when you and I were planning this and we were
mhm,
kind of, doing our little email or messenger or whatever back and forth, and and you had brought up, the whole idea of the midlife journey
mm,
and kind of what it is that we're grappling with, or what it is that we're really kind of like dancing with, during this time.
mm,
And so I was sitting with that and just, and the process that I'm going through right now. And I mean, it's very personal to me, but I also see it reflected in a lot of other people, is that this time, the only way to really kind of move forward is to let go,
mm,
is to let go of stuff that is really kind of keeping you from moving forward. And I just feel like that's really up right now. And and
mm,
a part of it for me, like I'm going to be 65 this year, so that's coming. And so I feel like I'm even like past midlife. I'm kind of like going into this whole other realm. It's like, what?
like how the hell did that happen?
Exactly. I know. I'm like, okay, all right. This was not in the plan. I really didn't. I know that theoretically this was supposed to happen, but um, and so I mean, you had said something about like in this time, and I think it really does start at midlife. I
Mm,
think it is kind of this ongoing thing, and there's that whole you can't. There's so much that you can't put up with anymore.
mm,
There's so much. It feels so like you're dragging shit around. Like you're dragging shit around that you kind of don't have the energy for anymore. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm really experiencing is that there's all these patterns, there's all these ways that I've been in the world that were very much about survival. You know, it was like, okay, so it's very survival oriented and it worked. You know, I'm here, I'm not dead. So I did survive, but I'm not thriving. When I'm carrying those things around, I don't feel like I'm thriving. And so I think that that's part of this journey is that those things get so heavy and they just, you know, they no longer feel like it's worth it, you know, like it's worth it to really carry that stuff around anymore. But it's there's a lot of grief involved in letting it go. That's the part that I'm kind of like a little, I mean, theoretically I could always go, oh yeah, of course, blah, blah, blah. You know, like I read the book about that and how that happens, you know, but the experience of it is grief 101.
Yeah.
But, you know, the experience of letting go of this stuff that even though I don't want it, it feels heavy, it feels burdensome, it feels like it's in the way, you know, really feels like it's in the way. It's still, there's so much grief about releasing it and about letting it go because it was so much a part of me, you know, for
well, it's
so
so
long.
familiar.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
I've thought so much about identity, you know, and how, you know, I feel like there's this core Kateness, whatever that is, you know, but there's also all this other stuff that gets sort of glommed onto that ends up feeling like identity.
Yes,
Especially
exactly.
if it comes along with us for a while, right? It's like, I'm a person who, these are those wonderful statements, and I'm a person who doesn't, or I would never, or, you know, there's all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And also, what we were protecting ourselves from
Exactly.
is not necessarily, the protection isn't safe anymore because it's keeping us from things now.
Exactly.
You know, so what was a beautiful containment and necessary containment ends up being a limit now. It's like, okay, like what am I actually protecting myself from? And so when you talk about this, it's like my first instinct is it's almost like a pot-bound plant, you know.
I love that. That's a great metaphor. Yeah, that's
You know,
beautiful.
where it feels like there's there was a reason, you know.
Yeah.
And then we've outgrown it, but it's like, that's our pot, baby. It's like, that's it.
Really. Do I get a bigger pot? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Is it okay? You know, I'm going to have to break this one. Yeah.
And then I'm going to have to be in between. This is the other thing, right? There's a time of in between when we leave this on our way to that.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so vulnerable. It's such a vulnerable place, you know, and there's so much, well, there's the attachment, you know. I mean, there's the thing about the old pot, you know, and I love how you frame that as a container because it was a container and it brought beautiful things, you know, it really did bring beautiful things. And so that's part of it. It's like, okay, you know, so am I going to lose all of those beautiful things? You know, am I not just going to lose the pot, which is starting to feel really tight and really like, oh my God, you know, it's not very comfortable at all any longer. But am I going to lose all of the things that came along with that? And I think that that's part of it. And then, like you said, this whole place of vulnerability, like, well, I'm breaking, the old pot is cracking. I haven't gotten the new pot yet. And so here I am with all my little roots kind of like, you know, out there exposed. And it's tender. It's very tender. It's a very, very tender time. Yeah. And I think a lot of us are going through that right now because, you know, so much is happening in the world that is breaking the pot. You know, I think the pot is breaking collectively. You know, there's so many ways that we have thought what the world was. At least that's true for me. And I know it's true for a lot of people I know. Like, I thought the world was a certain way. And it's like, no, it's not. And so
Mm-hmm.
that the identity of me in relationship to the world is
Mm-hmm.
really shifting too. And there's a lot of grief around that also.
So how do you feel about the relationship of this with self-trust? Because my feeling all of a sudden is like if I've always had this perception and I realize that my perception is wrong, either because it
Yes.
no longer fits or because things have shifted or because I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
how does that, the thought that just came to me right then is like, okay, and there's another added level of vulnerability that I immediately think of, which is like, how do I trust myself
Mm-hmm.
in this space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
how,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, right, right. And that's a really good question, because I think that's part of the grief for
right,
me.
yeah.
It's like, okay, all this stuff that I was doing, it seemed really good at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. I mean, that's the thing that I really have to
Yeah,
remember.
yeah,
At the
yeah, yeah.
time, it was actually fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there were always elements of, uh, what's the word that I'm thinking of? There was always elements of inauthenticity to it. There were always
Mm-hmm.
elements, even though some of these things were working, they were not fully connected, to, like you said, my essential Christmas. My
Yeah.
essential Christmas was informing it, but it was uh, still kind of being translated,
Mm-hmm.
through something that was not fully yet me. So yeah, that's part of the grief for me is really recognizing that. It's like, oh, I really thought that I was living this fully authentic life, and I was, to the point that I could,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what I knew at that time and what I could understand as fully authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's not. And now there's a new level of that. So yeah, so that, I mean, that is part of the grief. It's like, oh, and a big part of this for me is the forgiveness. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really forgiving myself and not feeling like, oh my God, I really fucked up, or because that comes in like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, how could I have been so blind for so long? And it's like, oh well, welcome to get in line, with all the rest
Yep.
of the humans.
Every single human being only knows what they know when they know it, right?
Exactly, 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 exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that thing where when you don't see it until you see it, and then when you see it, it's like so clear.
I know. Jesus.
Right,
Sorry. Yeah.
right. No, 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 no.
I know.
But I know. I mean, yeah, exactly, exactly.
No.
So you don't see it until you see it, and then you see it, and you're like, oh fuck, I can say that, right? I mean, in your show, yeah, yeah, okay,
If you
okay.
can say it to me, you can say it. That's all
That's
there.
right.
That's the
That's all.
rule. Yeah.
That's right. We're together here, right? So that's it is that thing where I mean the other part of it is
Mm-hmm.
celebrating it. I can
Oh,
feel
yeah.
some sense of celebration. It's like, look at what you did. You broke out of the pot. You broke out of the pot, and yeah, there was all this stuff that you were doing, and it served you in a certain way, and now it's gotten too small and too tight, and you're really ready for something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So how about that? So that it's all kind of mixed up and mixed in, and it's so complexly beautiful and sad and exciting, and all of that. Yeah.
There's so much about grief that is inner and outer, right? I mean, I feel like there's, these intersecting spirals. It's not quite Mobius strippy because it doesn't stay in that one
Yeah.
track, right? I mean, there's more to it than that, but there's
Right.
sort of the inner experiences of it, and then there's the outer expressions of it, and
Mm-hmm.
and how we relate to ourselves in that, and then how do we, and our own histories and our own sense of identity and our own stuff, and then how do we take that into the world
Right.
as a thing, like, hi, here I am with my bag of shards. I once talked about this really weird feeling during a deep grief of walking through the world with a wet bag, a wet paper bag filled with shards, and just kind of wondering when
Mm.
was the bag going to split open, and when were
Yeah.
my shards going to sort of be
Right.
exposed. But
Hmm.
the idea of celebration, both what was,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
well, not
Both
just
what
both. I
was.
think there's three, right? There's the what
Hmm.
was, there's what
Hmm.
is,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then there's the what could be. This place of potential.
Hmm. Yes. Hmm.
That
Hmm.
that when you said celebrate, I immediately got goosebumps because it felt like maybe that's a piece that I think is so easy to miss when one is grieving and one's feeling vulnerable and feeling in
Hmm.
transition and feeling uncertain and feeling in between, in between, in between, in between, in between.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's really hard to
Hmm.
connect to that feeling of celebration and
Hmm.
honoring, you know,
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, so that feels really important to me,
Hmm.
personally in this moment too. So of course our conversation, as all my conversations seem to be, are like perfectly timed.
Right. Of course.
God,
Yeah.
and but here we are. So right now here in New Hampshire, it is the cusp of spring. Okay, so we
Mm.
have we have buds, we don't have leaves. We have
Mm.
dandelions, but we don't have grass. I mean, we have like, we're
Right.
just at the beginning point of a time of like rapid transition
Yes.
where every
Mm-hmm.
day we're going to see new things. And there's an
Mm.
excitement that comes with that as an external show. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so how can I take this season? And I realize that some of the people listening to this are in a different season of transition. They're,
Right.
down south
Mm-hmm.
in a big way,
Right. Exactly.
so they're, watching leaves come off. But there's this feeling in me of like, how can I take that beauty? Because I see that as beautiful, and
Mm-hmm.
I see
Yeah.
that as wondrous, and I see that
Yes.
as magical. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so,
Absolutely.
but as soon as it's in me, it's like, it's a threat. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
see this as part of a natural process that,
Mm-hmm.
that is in fact beautiful, mystical, magical,
Mm-hmm.
transformative.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And it's both. It's
mhm.
what you were just saying. It's it's terrifying and it's exhilarating,
Mm.
It's there's so much it's tremendously sad and it's incredibly joyful. I mean,
Mm.
I think, that that's part of what's so intense about it because
Mm.
it's not just one thing. And it's not like, okay, now I'm sad and now I'm happy. I mean, it's not like you
Yeah.
go through some door and then it's like that's all gone or be left behind you or the
Yeah.
shards have fallen out of the bag and you don't even know where they are. Um, it's very fluid and it's very dynamic and
Mm.
it's very alive in that way. And there's an intensity to it. There's so
Mm.
much intensity to it because you're trying to kind of move back and forth between these different states.
Mm.
Because that's one of the things that's been going on for me. Like I'll find myself like, oh my God, just feeling like brought to my knees with the grief. Totally brought to my knees with the grief. And how do I honor that? How do I surrender to that? It's always that question. I'm always like, no, no, it's going to last forever, blah, blah, blah. The thing that everybody goes through. It's going to kill me.
Yes.
No, I'm going to die. And then to be with that, and then to see the dandelions popping up or
Mm.
the buds, starting to open, and to feel that tenderness and that joy. So it is that thing about being. It's very intimate. It's a very
Yeah.
intimate. So it requires such a
Mm.
powerful intimacy with ourselves, to go through that
Mm.
process of that transition of breaking the pot. And yeah, yeah. And it's so intense, but so, yeah, intimate is just the word. I mean, that's just the thing I keep coming back to.
No, it feels bare naked. No, so it's
Mm.
funny because when I was thinking about the pot, being pot bound, I have always been drawn to the idea of wildcrafting of
Mm.
various kinds, right? So
Yeah.
I've never done, this isn't what I do, but there's something about that phrase, wildcrafting, that appeals to me more than I can possibly articulate, but I think I sense that you know what I'm trying to get at. But
I
there's
do.
this
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
sometimes that the next place isn't the pot.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
there's that. What if we're not even going to have a pot?
right. And then I know, right? And then I think of that octopus that's like, okay, so I am nonlinear. Sorry, world, if you hadn't figured that out, then you're wrong place, wrong place. Okay, so there's this beautiful video of this octopus like running along the bottom of the ocean, carrying this coconut half, sort of as a, movable shield. So
Hmm.
here it is, like in this vast, wide open. This is like, but I got my shell, but it's movable, right? So it takes the idea in a way of the pot, flips it right over on its head, literally, and says, okay, what about this mobility all of a sudden, right? What about this idea of being able to, sort of extend and expand, not just from where I am to, and reach farther, but perhaps even to move to a new spot. So it's not just this will help my roots grow wider and deeper, but have the opportunity to possibly, recreate myself in a different space, like because the distance may be where right now what I need to do is cast the seeds so that they will show up where they need to be next.
Exactly.
I mean, there's this,
Exactly.
I don't know, there's something kinetic about this that I feel like I'm grappling with language, and I always get tied up with that. It's like I have an image of what I'm trying to say, but, you know, um,
Well, the thing that, as you're talking,
yeah,
the thing, and I've seen that video with the octopus and the coconut.
it's
It's adorable.
awesome.
Oh my God, it's the sweetest thing. But when you were talking about the wild crafting, and again, that is something. I mean, I don't do that either. I don't do wild crafting, but I'm something about that.
But I think you do.
Ugh.
That's
Okay,
the thing.
you're right. I do. I do. I don't do it with plants, but you're
Yeah.
right. I do. And so I got really excited. The whole idea of being potless,
Yeah.
the whole idea of, when I think about wildcrafting, it's like you're connected to the whole, you're connected to the earth and all this stuff that's happening, and everything's all kind of mixed in with everything else, and everybody's kind of talking with each other, and their roots are all kind of, and there's something about opening up to that kind of expansion, and that being part of the bigger whole. That really kind of got me all tingly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, and this is so fun. I mean, because like I had no idea we were going to end up here, but this is really great. That's what I was
I never
hoping
know.
for.
Yes. One
I
never
know.
knows where one goes with these things. Yes.
Right. I know, it's so good. But I think that's, and the image that's coming to my mind now is, those Russian nesting
Oh,
dolls,
yeah, yeah.
those, and I think as we, like we grow and we expand, and we're children and we're adolescents and blah, blah, blah. And we need those pots. But I think when we get to this point in our life, the midlife piece, I don't think we need the pot in the same way anymore. I think that this is really about us connecting with the larger world, and kind of being part of that, in a way where we are more naked, where we can trust ourselves more, where we don't need as many of the kind of the things, Anyway, I don't know. I just got really excited by that idea.
No, listen, I think that if the interconnectedness can be terrifying to some people because they look at that as a loss of individuality, individualism, whatever
Yeah.
the loss of self. Some
Yes.
people believe that the self is just a construct anyway, and it's just a little nodule of a larger everything anyway. But whatever
Yes.
that is, there's a comfort in this idea of a self, right? And then what
Yeah.
happens if we can't be self-protected, or what if we can't be self-contained, or what if we can't be independent? What if we can't
Mhm.
be, and there's a lot of that. Like, I feel like there's a lot of tension in that space around self versus
Mhm.
other, even if the
Mhm.
other is a beloved.
Yes.
There's this, there's
Hmm.
this, there's this tension of I still want to be me, and there's
Yes.
a
Hmm.
meanness to this. And
Hmm.
I'm wondering also if this moment is a time also of where we bring our, the eyes together, in
Yes.
that it's not a I am now giving up the
Mm-mm.
Kateness, it's the I'm bringing the
Mhm.
Kateness to the collective.
Exactly, exactly. And that was really
Yeah.
the image that I was having. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to dissolve and
Hmm.
be like there's no more me left. But there is that, and I think this is also part of the Western culture anyway, in the
Yeah.
West, I mean, this is, we have this whole ego thing and this whole individuality thing. And that's partly what's causing a lot of problems that we're
Yeah.
having right now.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation. Um, but there's something about, yeah, like kind of bringing my meanness, and I'm having this image of roots. I mean, because the
Hmm.
roots are the thing that we started with, the
Hmm.
roots and breaking out of the pot. And instead of putting those roots back in a pot, I can see the roots kind of growing and moving and connecting up with other roots and being
Hmm.
part of this, like this field, like we're all in this field or this forest.
Hmm.
And and there's so much more there. It's so much more rich and it's so much more alive. And you know there's all the back and forth and the interchange and the connection that it's more nourishing. I mean, there's that whole nourishment piece,
Mm.
because when we're in the pot, we're really trying to protect ourselves and contain ourselves, and we're like eating little bits of things, but we don't have access to all of this stuff that can really feed us.
Hmm.
And so that's the image that I'm having, like, oh, it's actually more freedom and more
Yep.
aliveness.
Yep.
So, and I think you're right. I think we have that conception or construction around, oh, we're going to lose something,
Hmm.
if we don't have that container, if we don't have, here I am, this is me, this is you, we're all good. And yet we've lost so much by not having that
Hmm.
kind of interconnected thing. I don't know if this makes any sense at all, but
It does to me.
oh,
So
good. That's okay. That's all that matters. It's just me and you
it's
right
just you
now.
and me anyway. But one of the things that, okay, there's two things before we should probably reach a resting place of this moment of our conversation, which will be
Yes.
ongoing. So you're stuck with me now forever.
Oh, I'm so
And that is
glad.
that when you move, okay, so for those of who were not here when we began, before I hit record, Chris was sitting somewhere else and it was kind of in a dark spot, so she moved so she could be seen more easily, which is lovely. But what's funny is, Chris, the curtain behind you, from the moment that you moved there, has reminded me of a forest. It looks, because of the way
Oh, really?
the drape is hanging, it looks
Oh,
to me like
interesting.
a beautiful set of
Mm.
tree trunks.
Oh, interesting.
So
Oh,
to
you're right.
me, as we were
Oh,
talking about this, sort of returning to this
yeah.
idea of an
Hmm.
interconnectedness, and sort of more of a forest nature,
Yes, the
which
forest
is
nature.
which
Yes.
is just so interesting. It's almost as if you
Mm-hmm.
were talking about where I see you to currently be,
Oh, that's beautiful,
you
Cindy.
know,
Yeah. Oh, wow. That
which
is so cool.
which is so neat. I just think that's so
Yeah.
neat when things like that happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and your painting behind you is very similar. I
Thanks.
mean,
Yeah.
well, yeah, because it's so nonlinear.
Mm,
There's so
shocking.
much happening.
Mm,
It's so rich and it's so complex and it's so, because that's the other thing. There's this whole mystery thing that happens.
hmm.
Like, you don't know when you go out into the forest with all of your roots, and like you don't know what you're going to find, what you're going to encounter. You're
Hmm.
not safe in the sense that it's not familiar. And so your painting keeps drawing me in that same, and maybe I'm probably, our conversation is really being, influenced by
By our backgrounds,
our
literally
background.
and figuratively, yes.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
So I have one more image to share that came up as you were talking about my painting, which was very sweet. Because one of the things that I do is a lot with it's not clear what layer you're on. So I mean, it's a journey.
Right.
You can continue to look because it's like where am I? And the weaving is something I do. It's not something I plan. But
Right.
one of the things that I've always admired about trees are the ones that grow around barbed wire, are the
Oh,
ones that
yeah.
grow up and around the rock, the ones that
Mm-hmm.
grow in perhaps with a neighbor because that's the space they have. But there's an
Mm-hmm.
adaptability.
Yes.
They don't say, "Oh, there's a rock, I'm done."
Right. Right. Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
No.
and there's something about that that's always touched me deeply and felt
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah.
symbolic, right? I mean, so to me,
Yeah.
this is like this
Mm-hmm.
is a major heart space, and so to think about this idea of setting ourselves free
Yeah.
into this space
Mm-hmm.
of potential interconnectedness and
Yes.
richness and mutual
Mm-hmm.
nourishment while
Mm-hmm.
maintaining flexibility, making this, as we go over here, not so much nourishment. We don't need to go there. I mean,
Right.
it's
Right.
not like we lose, all agency.
No, you don't lose any agency at all. No.
Right. And
Right.
in fact, we gain
Exactly.
so much more because we've gained so
Mm-hmm.
many more possibilities. And
Exactly.
so I'm going to sit with that richness. It's like that's my Lomi space. As
Mm-hmm.
we,
Oh, I love that.
this idea of,
Mm-hmm.
releasing the containers that are keeping us from where we are ready to be.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yes.
we're ready to be, and
Mm-hmm.
and honoring their
Mm-hmm.
purpose.
Right. Exactly. Right.
There,
That's right.
that wasn't frivolous. It wasn't a frivolous space.
No.
But
No.
now
Mm-hmm.
it's not a needed space. That something else is both needed and wanted. And
Exactly.
yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
love that idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, it is that thing about, as you were talking about the trees and the rocks and how they don't stop and they include them. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm just going to open myself to you, rock, and kind of grow around you. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're just we're now together and you're part of me. And then, just that whole thing about, opening up to this. And like you said, it's not like you lose your agency. You don't at all,
Mm-hmm.
but you open yourself up to so much more potential nourishment,
Yeah.
so much more potential richness and it's more fun, it's more alive, it's juicier, it's all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
creative, all of those
Yeah.
things that we all want. I mean, I don't know, us, people like us. I mean, I think everybody
I want
wants it,
it.
really. Yeah, I
I
know.
want it.
I'm in.
I know I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. No, and yeah, so it's just, I mean, I just love where we went with this and where, I mean,
Oh my
this really
goodness.
helped me today too, because I was like, I was still in the broken pot phase and grieving that, which
Mm-hmm.
I will go in and out of. I mean, that's going to continue to happen, but there's this excitement about what this other thing is now that is
Oh, I'm
just
so glad.
really great.
Well, may the rain fall gently upon your forest, Chris Zydel.
Oh, and the same for you, my lovely Kate Johnson. Oh my God. So beautiful.
this
So
was
beautiful.
this was so lovely. Thank you. Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
yeah. No, thank you. Thank you. It was just what I needed and so beautiful. And so, I mean, again, we just did it.
Yeah,
We,
this is
we,
nourishment, baby.
yes, right. It's nourishment, baby. Baby.
And there's no pots. There will be no pots.
That's right.
Okay.
No, that's right.
Okay,
Yes.
so beloved watchers of this, I will put all of Chris's contact information in the blurb as I always do, so you can find her, and you should obviously find her and seek her out. And I'll put some of my contact information there too, should you be so interested. But Chris, if you want to hang out for a second, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Me too.
but just thank you. Beautifulness in all ways, and always so amazing a journey, these conversations for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just I feel just so
Yeah.
incredibly honored and blessed. So thank you so
Mhm.
much. Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you. Thank you. This was just magic. You're
Uh,
magic.
oh,
Thanks, darling.
thank you.